China is really sharp power. That means that if you are not with China, you are against China. And this I said on your show for the first time. I expect China to be more aggressive in the eastern sector. So everyone is sensitive to the sensitivities of China, and China, we respect that sensitivity. If they want one China, we want one India. Period. When China's vulnerabilities and sensitivities and strategic concerns and strategic anxieties are touched upon and addressed, then they will feel the pain. It is very easy for people to rule with the gun, but to govern with the gun is a different thing altogether. You can't govern with the gun. And I don't see anything which is happening by coincidence. This is part of a larger plan. And if we are not going to prepare for it, see, we have to defend ourselves. After defending ourselves, we have to dominate. And after dominating, we have to deter. I hope China goes into Afghanistan. The Russians will win first, the US will win. Because Chinese want to get directly impacted. You go to war as a last resort. So what are China's political objectives or the end state it wants after a war? Can China achieve that militarily? I don't think so.
Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. I've often wondered with the whole China thing which is being spoken about all over the place, especially with India, what is China's red line with India? What I mean to say is, when will China declare war in case certain steps are taken by India? To discuss that, I have with me Lt Gen Vinod Bhatia, PVSM, AVSM, SM, who retired as the Director General of Military Operations, or the DGMO, after 40 years of distinguished service. He was commissioned in the Parachute Regiment in June 1974, served in various theatres in command, staff, and instructional roles. He was instrumental in giving much needed focus to capability development and capacity enhancement along the northern and western borders. Today, he's a strategic thinker, an author, and of course, a speaker where his views are much sought after. Thank you, sir, for joining me on this very interesting discussion on what are China's red lines with India.
Thank you, Adi. Thank you very much. And good of me to give the opportunity. Jai Hind. Jai Hind to your viewers also.
Jai Hind, sir. So one thing to note is that even after the disengagement or the so-called move back, if I may put it that way, from the Pangong, so the Chinese aggressive behavior has not come down. That is what a lot of us expected, that things would kind of calm down a little bit. Looking at the current military situation in Ladakh, the Chinese, there are reports they have built up another airfield which is coming between Kashgar and Hotan. There are 24 helipads that they've built all across the LAC. There's a huge amount of infrastructure development that the Chinese are doing. So are we. When you look at the Chinese deployment across the LAC, especially in Ladakh, sir, what comes to your mind? An offense or a defensive posture?
It's a very interesting question. We have to look at the immediate to near term, then we got to look at the near to mid term, and then we got to look at the mid to long term. Because international relations, especially with the emerging superpower like China, are not going to start today and finish tomorrow. It's going to be a long term investment into the relations. And we have to understand that we are two neighbors. We have to understand that we have over 37-38% of the over 35% of the world's population with the two nations, and we are both a growing power. The emerging world order is going to be see a shift from the west to the east, and I think India will play a very major role in that as emerging world power, and also the balancing power. We'll have to look at not the balance of power game. We'll have to look at as India the balance of interest game. Or rather, we'll have to balance the balance of interest and the balance of power. So we'll have to have good relations with the other major powers, and we have to minimize China's aggressiveness, meet and mitigate China's aggressiveness. China will, China is really sharp power. That means that if you are not with China, you are against China. Now, India is the only nation in the world which has actually stood up to China's BRI. We did not only abstain, we opposed the BRI. It passes through our sovereign territory with the CPEC central to China Dream. And so to that extent, China did not view that very well. And it also understands that if India goes into the US camp, and which it has pushed actually. China doesn't understand India. Not that we understand China too much, but China also doesn't understand India at all. So we'll have to, it's like playing a game. If you're good at it and your opponent doesn't understand the same moves, he doesn't, when you're dribbling, let's say in basketball or hockey, and he doesn't, react the way you want him to react, then things go different. Similarly, China will have to understand that China, what it has done in Ladakh is part of the military coalition. I don't think it is part of war, and we have stood up to China. So that has surprised China. So China surprised her with its strategic movement, its operational behavior, its aggressive behavior, and we surprised China with a tactical, operational, and strategic resolve and resilience by standing up to China. The disengagement which you spoke about in Pengongso is an indicator that we have stood up to China and China has gone back, where others do continue. China has actually not progressed thereafter, which is a fact. We have not seen any further movement in the other 4-5 areas, whether it's Gogra, Hot Spring, Galwan, Dipsang, Demchok. So that will also happen. But the point remains that China will not go to war with India until India is weak. And when you're weak, China will definitely attack. War is the last resort. War is the last option. But if you are weak, then you will find China will make sure that then war is imminent if you are weak. But if you show the strength, show the might, and that is why India has to understand that it is the military might, the economic might, the political might, and the informational might which has to be synergized and to defeat China's strategic intent. So I don't see any red lines as such. The one red line which I see with China is a demonstrated weakness or a perceived weakness. And the second thing, which I think is not exactly a red line, but a spiral. A spiral can happen. The fact that it has not happened over the last 1 year plus now is because both sides do not want escalation. China has understood that Galwan was not one-off. If it acts the way it did in Galwan, Indian reaction will be equally effective and firm. So that is how I see the situation. A situation of stalemate along eastern Ladakh. It is a game of patience, and we'll have to play a game of patience with China, understanding China. Having said that, let me also go a step further. I think our focus on eastern Ladakh is good, but it should not be the only focus. We have to ensure that we remain vigilant all along the line of actual control, all along the 3, 4, 8 kilometers of the India-China border. And in particular, I would say, and this I said on your show for the first time, I expect China to be more aggressive in the eastern sector, especially in its strategic concerns of Doklam, which is actually Dolam. We call it Doklam, which is the Chumbi Valley, and in the western Tawang, which is Tawang sector, because Tawang is of course close interest with Dalai Lama and the Tibet issue. And we might see divisionaries in Nakula and Fishtails and a few other areas. But we should be prepared for China's aggressive behavior now along the eastern sector.
That's interesting that you say that, sir, because the East is something that they have not spoken about for a long, long time, and that seems to be a game plan. As a matter of fact, just a thing, to all the viewers, if you want to find out how China actually wants to weaken and what is his game plan, I've actually spoken about this with General Bhatia on a video called the Chinese 3 warfare strategy, or the unrestricted warfare. Please check it out. It'll give you a little more insight into what General Bhatia is talking about with regards to the weakening. So you mentioned the Tibet issue. We've recently seen the Prime Minister sending a greetings during the heights of tensions. If we didn't want to anger China, we wouldn't have done something like that. Plus, post that, there were news coming out that the Dalai Lama would like to meet the Prime Minister post the COVID situation comes to a little bit of a control. There has been some movement with regards to the Tibetan issue within India. If we do actually use this card and we use it hard, do you think that will decide to be, the Chinese would decide to make that as a red line for an aggressive action against India?
I think you're right. If you look at the CCP, Xi Jinping's 10 major concerns, and the first one is in the national interest, what the interest is given. The first one is the strengthening of the CCP and one China. That is the core interest. So, and their sensitivity is one China. If you look at the US, they had put up the flag of Taiwan as one of the countries to which they had supplied the COVID vaccine, and that flag was taken down. Right. So everyone is sensitive to the sensitivities of China, and China, we respect that sensitivity. If they want one China, we want one India. Period. And this was said by Mrs. Sushma Swaraj. One China also means one India. We have respected the Chinese sensitivities, but if China does not respect our sensitivities, I think this is time to play on their sensitivities of three T's: Tibet, Taiwan, and East Turkmenistan. These are the three, and the three T's. And we'll have to play it in a subtle manner. China should understand it can't just get away with bullying everyone and everything. It is doing that in South China Sea, in East China Sea, in Taiwan, in Tibet. Tibet is now building, is recruiting Tibetans now. So, and again in Ladakh. And why I say the eastern sector is because China does claim about 90,000 square kilometers of our territory in the eastern sector. It occupies 38,500 kilometers of territories in the western sector, which is Ladakh. But it claims 90,000 square kilometers of territories in the eastern sector. So that's the claim line of China, South Tibet as they call it. So we'll have to play it very well. And but to play it well, we should also be prepared for certain reactions by China, and we'll have to also bind to balance, as they say. Today, Japan is actually Japan's budget is $52 billion. Japan is investing a lot on their defense. So we'll have to see. I'm not talking the Quad. I'm talking of Quad has become a very this thing. But with like-minded democracies where we are convergent and congress of interest, let's see how to pressurize China at their own game of winning without fighting. So that is the Chinese aim: winning without fighting. When China's vulnerabilities and sensitivities and strategic concerns and strategic anxieties are touched upon and addressed, then they will feel the pain. Otherwise, they don't want to feel the pain. They have strategic anxieties, they have strategic concerns, they have strategic sensitivities. It is not only India. And China is conducting a sort of a political warfare, unrestricted warfare is extent document if you read that. So we have to understand the China game, the China interest, the China intent, and try and meet them at their own game without escalating the situation militarily.
Hmm. That is so the China game back at China, sir.
Absolutely. No, then we have to, and it's not difficult. It's the moves have already been made. If you look at it now, things are changing, and we have shown our resolve, and we have now Prime Minister Modi's message to His Highness the Dalai Lama on his birthday, and not wishing the CCP during the 100 years. These are indicators that it is not that only you can only play this game. We are also in it, and we are a powerful nation. We are a regional. Today we are respected in the world. We have the just and bellum with us. We have the moral right. We are the just. We are fighting a just sort of a cause. So just and bellum with us. The world realizes that, and no one will say anything against China openly because China is a very strong nation and strong. It's a power, and it is again that wolf-warrior diplomacy and debt trap, and 37 nations are impacted with the BRI. The B3W will come up when it comes up, but presently 137 nations are part of the BRI, including the European nations. So we will have to play ball with China. Have to play ball. Also, we are not a pushover.
Interesting, sir. So I'd like to ask you. One of the common converging grounds between India, Pakistan, and China is going to be Afghanistan. And of course, the Kashmir region, where Chinese have certain interests in Gilgit-Baltistan. They've got interest in Aksai Chin, which they hold at the moment. With the lawlessness that is going to, come into Pakistan, the last time we saw a lot of these, free-flowing terrorist militants, insurgents, as one would like to use it, but I'd like to call them terrorists, flowing in from Pakistan towards Kashmir and creating a lot of trouble this side. That trouble in today's terms will result in a counter-attack by India, and we've already set a certain precedence by doing the surgical strikes and the airstrikes and stuff like that. So the escalatory ladder is already on the way up. In case the balloon or a small action does take place between India and Pakistan, do you find the Chinese coming one to their rescue? Do you see anything moving in that direction, sir?
Honestly, I don't think China will jump in if it is not the national interest. No nation will protect anyone else. China will take advantage only if it suits them.
Mm.
If you look at 99 Kargil, you look at 1971. In 1971, the Pakistani soldiers believed that the white army will come from the sea and the yellow army will come from the mountains. No one ever came. It doesn't happen that way. See, it is national interest, and China's national interest right now is a China dream, and they want to consolidate. They want to be a world power. They want to challenge the US for world supremacy. They want a bipolar world order, and China is not going to, and India is not a pushover. Even if, let's say, a two front war situation, I hope it never happens. It should not happen. But even if it's not that two front war, India will be a pushover. No, it's not going to happen that way. We were dedicated. Resources were ready to resolve, and then there are international pressures. Wars are not fought between just two nations today. The geopolitics of the world changes with every war, and especially when you have two of the largest nations at each other's this thing. So it's India and China, and then Pakistan is also a ninth largest nation. So and Afghanistan, the vacuum which has been created, it's going to be a very interesting scenario because China's interests also directly threatened by that. I do feel that Pakistan, whatever Pakistan may say, I doubt if Taliban is fully under control of Pakistan. To some extent, yes, but it is very easy for people to rule with the gun, but to govern with the gun is a different thing altogether. You can't govern with the gun.
Correct.
So in the end, the Taliban have to provide good governance, and if it does not provide good governance, what happens to Afghanistan is the issue, and the impact will be felt maximum on Pakistan and Iran, being the neighboring countries. And you'll find there already millions of refugees in Pakistan. And when the refugees start pouring in, and Pakistan has now constructed the 1,200-kilometer fence, and they always used to tell us, no, you have a fence on the line of control. How can you tell us that we push terrorists because you have a fence? Now, Pakistan got a fence. Well, I'm going to ask them the same question. How do you stop anyone from crossing the fence? Because the fence can be crossed, fence can be breached. The Berlin Wall was breached almost on a daily basis, which is a very small one. So I feel that yes, Kashmir is going to be an issue, but then we are fully prepared in Kashmir. It is not that yes, there will be a spillover in Kashmir. Pakistan will try to send that TTP there, but let me also say that the foreign terrorists in Kashmir are not welcome. The Kashmiri people don't like them at all. Well, given the choice, they would shoot them first. You have to understand that there is about 75 to 80% of the silent majority, which is not for some Azadi or Pakistan or anything like that. So that silent majority today is reaping the fruit of a relative peace in Kashmir.
Yeah.
There's relative peace in Kashmir post August of 2019. The violence levels are down. There is peace out there. We have a very strong counter infiltration grid, a good city grid. The Indian Army behaves well, actually. Let me give myself the Army a pat. We are very careful of any collateral damage and things like that. And Operation All Out, which we did, was based on very specific information. No collateral damage. If there's a collateral damage, then we just call off the operation, wait for another day. The terrorist is not going to run away. He's going to be there. If I don't get him today, I'll get him tomorrow. Where's the hurry? So we have done well, and if the foreign terrorists start pouring into Kashmir, firstly, it's not that they it's open highway and they'll start coming in. I think 80 to 90% will get neutralized right on the fence during the infiltration. So, but yes, Pakistan will definitely drag to up the ante. But before they up the ante, they'll have to understand what is more important for Pakistan is to protect their interests in the CPEC, because they're dependent on the money which is flowing from China. And CPEC is central to China dream. And the CPEC gets hampered, like we saw this single blast recently. And if CPEC gets hampered, then China's not going to like it. Neither Pakistan going to like it, because there's a lot of money which is going to stop coming into Pakistan. And I doubt if, you're right when you say if there is a high profile, high visibility attack, no government in India can not now take retaliatory action.
Yeah.
Correct. But it's not going to happen, because the public sentiment is such. Public will want it after the surgical strikes, after the precision strikes at Jabba Top and Balapur. Everyone wants it, and no government can not do it now. So I think Pakistan understands that, and Pakistan will not cross the red lines. It crosses the red line, but try to cross the red line, but then we got our ways. But to say that China will just come in, I doubt. I have my doubts. China will come in only if it helps them.
Interesting. So I'll keep the Afghanistan question because that's something which is happening. This thing, and it doesn't really involve India and China issue, but I'll keep it to the last because there is an interesting question that popped into my head. With regard to this one China policy that you spoke about in your previous answer, one of the things that India has always maintained is this, an open aura of one China policy and this and that. Apart from a few statements made here and there, there's not much that has been said. With regards to Taiwan, there is a lot of cooperation that one can see has started up. There's medicines going up and down, although very covertly. There is nothing being said in the open anywhere. Taiwan requested for some help to be given to some countries in the Southeast Asia. India sent it across. It was very quiet. There is certain movement in that particular front, and that to me is one of the biggest red lines to China. What would you have to say, sir?
Definitely, I think Taiwan is something which is a core concern of China. The one China policy. Taiwan is very important actually. Taiwan economically also. Taiwan is the largest semiconductor base, and whoever controls Taiwan also gets to control semiconductor, which is the future. And we have an excellent goodwill in among the Taiwanese. So that is important. The goodwill is very important. They respect us, and we also have to, like I said, we'll have to play it in a very measured manner. It's not that when, like I said earlier, also China does not respect us and our sensitivities. We can also retaliate in that time, but it'll take a little time. It'll have to be measured, and at the functional level, I think Taiwan and India should be interacting, and they are interacting. There are business interests, and no one's going to stop us from business. Even China's business interests in Taiwan.
Yeah.
So, we have a business interest there, and we do not have a diplomatic relationship with China, but we still and I say that very strongly, we still honor that one China policy commitment. But if China is not going to honor the one India commitment, then a review and a reset of the China policy is a must. But let me also now go one step further. When you review and reset the China policy, it should not be anti-China. It should be pro-India. There's a difference between China and pro-India, despite the angst and the anger and the anguish post Galwan, what it is doing. But our reset policy should be pro-India. We should look after our interests. It can't be anti-China and all, despite the anger we have.
Correct. I mean, not think emotionally rather than think actually practically on the ground, because most of the most of the narratives that we hear is a lot to do with emotions rather than actual facts. So one thing I'd like to ask you is, because the Chinese have been spinning their own propaganda around, and a lot is coming out now. And since the last time we spoke, there's a lot that has come out further. There are also a few within the country who actually are propagating a very pro-China stance, and this includes prominent writers, prominent spokespersons, and stuff like that. Is it that the Chinese, are these nuisances for the country, or these actually more serious threats than we perceive it to be, sir?
No, the Chinese threat have taken seriously. Every threat has taken seriously. We can say it is a low probability, but there's a probability. If that Apple industry was burned down, the Apple factory was burned down at the height of the pandemic, when there was a lot of talk of industry shifting out of China to India and to other nations, and it happened. I don't believe in coincidences. I'm not saying that China did it, but it is a possibility and probability we will live with. If Mumbai outages take place, I feel we have to look at it. Look at the cyber warfare or the cyber attacks. They've gone up from a little less than 4 lakhs to 11 lakhs since in 2020. So that is an increase of 300%. So it is just 300% 1 year. So that is the increase. I don't understand. I don't see anything which is happening by coincidence. This is part of a larger plan. And if we are not going to prepare for it. See, we have to defend ourselves. After defending ourselves, we have to dominate. And after dominating, we go to deter. So there is a place to defend ourselves, which is along the line of actual control. There is a space to dominate. That space is in the maritime domain, and there is a space to deter them. That is in all domains. Basically, the maritime domain. We have to deter them there. The key challenge is to deter China's aggressive behavior for the time being. In the immediate term, we have to deter their behavior first, and then see how to take the relationship forward. I don't think we can do it on the economic domain alone. So we'll have to defend ourselves especially along the LAC. We'll defend ourselves in the multi-domain warfare, in the information domain. Like you said, a lot of things are coming out, and a number of people also speaking, which is right. You're absolutely you're spot on when you say that. It's a bullseye. But are we getting carried away? Yes, we are getting carried away. Why? We should look after. In the end, our focus has to be our interests, our national interests. Period. Well-being of a 1.39 billion Indians. That is the end thing we want. We want to transform India to a modern, prosperous, and a secure nation. Without security, the economic without peace and stability, there is no economic development. We need economic development, especially after pandemic. So we'll have to look at the 360 degree as they call it. But yes, the first of it is defense. Without defense, there's nothing you can do. When I say defense, I don't mean defense forces. I mean securing ourselves both with external threats and internal threats, including non-traditional security threats, which may not be kinetic. China may not have a kinetic security threat. Not like there is a debate still out whether the coronavirus, the COVID-19, is a biological weapon or not, or the second wave was triggered or not. So I'm not saying it was triggered. I'm not saying it was not triggered. What I'm saying is, first, let us defend ourselves first.
Creates a debate.
Then
creates a
government better.
Interesting. And some time ago, there was also that news that floated around. There was another clash and stuff like that. That created a huge amount of debate, more than anything else. I mean, we all know there was no clash, but it just created a debate, diverted the whole entire attention. And probably that was the reason that was done or not. It's anybody's game. So before I ask you,
Can I take a minute on that?
Absolutely.
You see, this report of a clash and they're copying Kailash. I just got two very quick points. One, there are multiple agencies deployed out there. The Indian Army is there, the Indian Air Force there, the ITBP, the IB, the state police, the state administration, the district administration, the villagers, the media. When there's so much of agencies, how do you not know what's not? Well, there has to be transparency. We are a democratic nation. We can't say the government will stop everything. How can the government stop anything, please? There's so many people out there with a mobile phone. Everyone can take a video and things. And you talk of China, you talk about Kailash. The world is looking at satellite imagery on a daily basis. We've had the satellite imagery by so many image interpreter experts giving every bunker with the Chinese that had come forward. And if he occupied the Kailash Ridge, I think the social media would have gone berserk, giving images of satellite imageries of the PLA sitting on the Kailash Ridge.
Correct.
So let's not give too much of credence. Trust the Indian Army, please. I request, trust the Indian Armed Forces. They will not say anything which is incorrect. I've done 40 years in the army. Why should they say anything which is incorrect? If they say it is not there, it is not there. And there's nothing to hide. If he's come at Galwan and there's been a clash, so what? Clashes do occur. It's not the first time, it's not the last time. When there's a difference of perceptions, clashes will occur. We will do our duty. They should not deny that. If Galwan happened, the cost of their lives, Santosh Bhavan, 20 men did their duty.
I think that's an excellent answer. So I must thank you for taking that minute out and explaining this out very clearly. Sir, before I end the interview, I'd like to ask you this question about Afghanistan. Huge turmoil. India has its interest there. Pakistanis are spinning it around that India has lost $3 billion. I mean, if you look at Indian economy, 3 billion is pretty much nothing. It was not our investments, and that's something that a lot of people are not clear with. It is an aid that we had given to Afghanistan. With regards to India and Afghanistan today, sir, there's a lot of turmoil which is around the place. Just a forethought, sir. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, what's going to happen is difficult, but let me say that $3 billion is not what we have lost. It is what we have gained, and we gained the goodwill of the Afghani people. We have invested in the people of Afghanistan. We did not invest in Taliban. Pakistan invested in Taliban. We not invested in Taliban. We invested in what the people of Afghanistan wanted, and the goodwill is there. It is not 3 billion that matter. 3 billion can, like you said, there's nothing very much, and all 3 billion is not lost. No one can just destroy that buildings or the roads don't get destroyed so easily, or the dams. So it is not that we have lost the $3 billion. We invested in what the Afghanistan people wanted us to invest in. We've done that.
Okay.
We have trained them military, yes, and mind you, the Afghanis are very friendly towards us because of that. They understand that we have a good intent. You go to Delhi, uh, there are shops out there with especially in places like Saket and Lakhpat Nagar, with Afghani names. The medical shops, so they come for medical treatment. Most of the Afghanis want to come to India. So that is what we are doing. That's not going to stop whether Taliban comes or not. So Afghanistan, it is going to be very interesting from a strategic viewpoint. Very interesting study. But Afghanistan is always in Afghanistan. I hope China goes into Afghanistan. The Russians will went in first. The US went there because China is going to get directly impacted. The Taliban is based on an ideology, right? What is the ideology? The ideology is, let me say, it's an extreme ideology. And if the Taliban is going to start interpreting that and spreading it across the borders, especially in Xinjiang, China is not going to like it. They're going to problem the CPEC, the China is going to like it. And I'm not talking about what they're going to do towards Iran. So Afghanistan will be in turmoil. The Taliban has taken over about 80% of the country already, but it's the hinterland. The city centers and the district centers still remain with the Afghan national forces. And Pakistan is directly helping them out. Pakistan says that if you fly, Kandahar and that crossing near Kandahar, what do you call it? Skin border. So the transit points from where the trade flows. So Pakistan says if you use your air force or your attack helicopters, we'll use our missiles and destroy them. So that is a direct relationship between Taliban and Pakistan. So Pakistan have to pay for the Talibanization of Afghanistan. It is not, the ideology doesn't end with the borders.
Yeah.
It's going to overflow, and Pakistan have to pay for it. And I don't know. Like I said earlier, governing by the gun is going to be difficult. Taliban may take power by the gun. They may rule by the gun, but how do they govern with the gun? So we'll have to see how it pans out. It's going to be interesting in a way. But yes, there is a vacuum. There's a turmoil. There is civil war which is already erupted out there. And China, Pakistan, Iran, India, US, Uzbekistan, major Russia, major players. We are already in talks with Taliban.
Yeah.
And we should talk to anyone. After all, so what? Taliban is not a. We can talk to Taliban. If we can talk to Pakistan after 99 Kargil, and in 2000 we can invite their then President Musharraf. I think we can talk to Taliban also. So what's Pakistan? Why India is talking to Taliban? We spoke to Pakistan after the 99 Kargil intrusions. We on the 26th and the next week on Monday we celebrated the Kargil Divas. But after 99, we spoke to Pakistan after they'd done what they'd done, and they never agreed to it, and they said these are not included and things like that, and they included not Pakistani army. So we should talk to them, and we should make sure that there is whatever possible semblance of peace is there in Afghanistan, and we'll protect our interests in the people of Afghanistan. And if the people of Afghanistan are okay with it, it's okay with us.
Interesting. Yes, sir. Of course, we have to go by whatever's the game over there. Sir, in case the balloon does go up between India and China, the agreement pretty much all across the strategic circles is going to be a very, very localized war, a very, area-centric war. It's not going to be a, open-ended conflict as what used to happen in erstwhile years. How would the world react to such a situation? And I say this before, I get trolled for this particular situation, is that I say this with complete confidence that the Indian army and the armed forces put together are more than capable of taking care of China. But still, what would be the world's reaction?
See, uh, what is China? Let me rephrase it. You go to war as a last resort. So, what are China's political objectives or the end state it wants after a war? Can China achieve that militarily? I don't think so. I don't think so. So, what is a possibility? What you said is a skirmish, and the skirmishes could happen on our border areas. Basically, the skirmish could happen on the sea also. It's not that they would. The skirmishes, when they happen in the border areas, the air would get involved. But escalation control, it will be in China's interest for escalation control, because if China goes to war with India and India is a big nation. We are the second largest army, we're the fourth largest navy, we're the fourth largest air force. So it is not that, if China goes to war, the war will be over in a few days or something. Well, there's going to be a continued stalemate. Uh, it is going to be some give here, some take there. I'm not saying that we will overrun China will overrun. 62 is, there's no question of 62. There's no question. So China will leave itself vulnerable in many other areas, and that is what China cannot afford. So there are nations like the US is there, the Taiwan state is. There are five major flashpoints in the world, and all of them got a Chinese connect. Taiwan has got a Chinese connect. South China Sea has got a Chinese connect. East Sea has got a Chinese connect. Korea has got a Chinese connect, and the India-China border has got a Chinese connect. So with five flashpoints of China connect, and India only got one connect out there basically. It's a China connect. Pakistan is a state which is finding it difficult to survive. It doesn't have the budget to fight, and I think it realizes that. They can keep fooling the people of Pakistan for some time, but not all that time. So I do feel that China will leave itself vulnerable, and China's the dream of being, what it wants to in 2049 and what it talks about. So that will get pushed back because it will be a cost to pay. I don't think China will attempt anything which will pull China dream back.
I think that's a very, very balanced answer, sir, rather than what we hear in most of the analysis which is put across in our media. If I may take a moment to just summarize what we just, spoke about, I asked the general a question and he gave a very, very clear answer about the Chinese positioning within Ladakh. What did they come to do and where they are in terms of their objectives? I'm sure they didn't recognize the kind of response that they would have got. And I think that has been pretty well established. But the way the general has put it across has created a certain amount of baseline for the discussion to move forward. We spoke about Tibet and the Tibet card, which a lot of people want to use aggressively. But I think I would go with what he said. It has to be subtle. It has to be, slow, because no country in the world is doing hard things with China, and China is a large power. So we can't be doing something like that just in emotions. And that's something that the general had brought out very, very clearly. Pakistan, of course, there's a huge fear, and the Pakistanis, of course, propagate this fear that in case there is a battle between India and Pakistan, the Chinese would help them out and stuff like that. Well, they're daydreaming as pretty much ever, and that's confirmed. Taiwan, which is an interesting discussion today. Everybody wants us to have diplomatic relations. A lot of us won't even know that there is a certain amount of diplomacy that happens between both the countries. We've got certain organizations which are running. But I think, again, it has to be a very, very slow approach, as the general mentioned. And of course, as the general explained, the chances of, if China knows what is good for itself, I don't think, and as the general also very clearly said, he doesn't think that the Chinese would take a stupid action as to go into a full-fledged skirmish with India, because it's not something like writing a Global Times editorial. Thank you, sir, for clarifying this, and of course the big controversy about the fake clash that happened in so-called Galwan and so on other places. It's always a pleasure to talk to you with your experience, sir, and I hope for many more interactions.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.